Alright everybody, it is of course Great and Glorious, simply famous one day Nick Dutch back on the camera again one more time. I still like my traditional classic introduction, although I really should update it considering it's the length of time I've been on YouTube, and although I'm still not famous, and I don't think I ever will necessarily be famous, I think I should just try and work on a better introduction because this one's getting really rather boring. I don't even know whether this particular camera angle is actually going to look okay at all, and on top of that the lighting here is probably rather drab, so I might appear to you to be a bit grey or blackish, merging into the background. But on the other hand, what the hell? This shirt was ironed once at some point in its ancient history, and I don't look too bad today, so I thought this would be an ideal time for me to appear back on the camera and start talking to you about something which has been going on inside my mind. Obviously, YouTube is partially fact-based or information-based, but it's also entertainment-driven to a great degree. And I'd like to thank all of my viewers who watched the previous video and had a laugh with me about that one particular character who said something really rather unfortunate to me. To a certain degree, it is really rather good that there are people out there who seem to be sufficiently mentally deranged to be able to provide me with some form of material, shall we say, for some of my YouTube videos, which can actually assist in entertaining people. So yes, it's great that something can happen which can eventually, through the process of me working out how to frame it to you and then creating a video for you to watch, so that you can actually get some kind of entertainment from it. That's obviously great. But what if all of these little issues that I come across through the very strange private messages I receive, the strange comments that appear in my comment sections once in a while, as well as the strange things that people say to me, whether it is something to do with my work or whether it's something to do with some other aspects of life, such as a peculiar point of view which is connected to some kind of misrepresentation of history or facts or the way the world works, and is dominated by a rather juvenile or unintelligent form of theological premise. I'm beginning to come to a conclusion, and I'm not quite sure whether this conclusion is correct, but I'm going to tell you what this conclusion is. It's more like a hypothetical model rather than a conclusion, shall we say. But there's certain ways of looking at the world which is almost akin to a form of disease to a certain extent. And what I've been trying to do, as the long-term viewers of this one particular YouTube channel have probably realized by now, is to try and be, to a certain extent, and within my own lifetime, the antidote to that particular problem. But within the one specific area of life which is predominantly dominated by my own personal interests, the various movements which I have some kind of identification with, as well as, of course, the industries that I've been connected with and am connected with. However, it's more like the ways of thinking which have become manifest within this particular area of life, such as the New Age communities, certain forms of religious perspectives, the psychic industry, the psychic, clairvoyant, mediumship, spiritual type entertainment industry, and the like. That same way of thinking and the problems of that way of thinking appears to be manifest in lots of different groups. Now, whether there is an official name for this particular way of thinking, whether this is actually a disease or not, or indeed should be or could be regarded in that way, I don't actually know. But it does appear that there is something almost pathogenic about this particular way of thinking. Of taking to a particular stance, developing a certain level of belief in that particular stance, and then talking about that one particular stance as if it is correct, without necessarily asking more and more questions. Or indeed to be able to say, okay, so I've developed a particular belief, but whether something exists or not will still be the case, no matter what I believe, or indeed possibly my beliefs may be based upon some kind of presuppositions which are not fully thought through, or maybe there was a problem with some aspects of my reasoning. And yes, we do get that within the atheist community, the religious community, and the various political communities associated with different ideas. Of course, the more stark evidence of this, shall we say, would be with things like climate denial, evolution denial, and the like, of course. But then there's also the things which come loosely under the category of spiritual and or religious points of view. I mean, atheism itself may be a particular stance, uh, or a number of stances which centre on the rejection of a certain form of idea or ideas. However, whether there is something to a certain degree true about those particular ideas, one cannot really say with any total concrete, solidity, so to speak. So, on the basis of lack or insufficient evidence, some people would therefore state, well, such and such doesn't exist, because that is what I personally believe. But a lot of those beliefs are based upon other people's excuses for their beliefs, and the things that they have heard, the things that they have read, the things that they have heard other people say. I'm not quite sure if I'm repeating myself there, but never mind. And the justifications that other people have used. But even that is based upon other people's justifications. And other people's justifications could also be part and parcel of a form of false reasoning. I traditionally like to refer back to the writings of Aleister Crowley when I'm talking about the New Age and occult movements, because essentially he is still regarded as being some kind of father of the movements, despite the fact that the people who are involved in the movements seem to have managed to lose the ability to read. Although they may be able to see words printed on a page, they won't necessarily be able to use comprehension skills to be able to work out what those words are saying. Any sufficiently well programmed machine with a good enough lens could hypothetically view the words on a page and read them back. Heck, I've got an application on my mobile phone which, if I type words into it, it will then speak those words back to me if I press the right buttons in the right combination. But are there people in this world who have progressed intellectually beyond that application on my mobile phone? I don't think so. I think that a lot of people have in fact lost the ability to reason. Earlier on today I was reading a website based upon the ideas of deism, which is one of the many ideas which I personally seem to ascribe to or connect with. But that one particular website suggested that humans have God-given reason. The more I analyse the protestations and points of view of various people who make their views known here on the internet, the more I'm beginning to doubt whether there is some kind of divine God-given reason which is in the possession of every single human being. Because the form of reasoning that people seem to have seems to be based upon adherence to a wide variety of other people's points of view, rather than necessarily forming their own opinion based upon evidence, and indeed improving their skills on how to work out what good evidence is and in what particular fields those forms of evidence can actually be applied. You know, what the standards of good evidence really are. Admittedly, there are some people within the scientific communities who have tried to find a way of improving their own personal understandings of what it means to have good quality information and what it means to get and improve their qualities of information. But even these people still fall prey to some forms of superstitious beliefs, and if not superstitious beliefs, then some variety of intellectually flawed beliefs. And I think I can say that without too much in the way of contradiction. For instance, and on the most basic level, what about the idea of the existence of God? Sure, no one knows whether there is a God, no one knows what the properties of God are, so essentially, can we really say that there is a God? The answer would have to be yes and or no, possibly we don't know, or maybe. The way that some people portray the argument is that just because there is no evidence for something, therefore that one thing can't possibly exist. That would actually have to be a fallacy in its own right. The fact of the matter is, if something exists which is beyond our comprehension, then something exists which is beyond our comprehension. Whether there is evidence for that which is outside of what we currently know, that is another debate for another time. But the fact of the matter is, if we don't know, then quite simply we have to say that we don't know. Then you would have to ask yourself, why then, therefore, does atheism itself exist? A lack of belief in something from people who regard themselves as necessarily being rational. I don't think that we can say that maybe there is an actual direct proof that there is no God or gods or spirits. I would have to say that there are questions, and questions to which there have not been placed any answers. The very fact that there are people who regard themselves as being rational but yet are prepared to make the hard truth claim that gods or goddesses or demons or angels or spirits or life after death does not exist or cannot exist, demonstrates that there is a great quantity of irrationality within the minds of the atheist. Sure, it is worthwhile to find a way of criticizing other people's points of view and opinions, and I think that it's well worthwhile that the atheist community actually exists and carries on doing so to carry on challenging some points of view. However, the challenges of the various points of view which are created by the atheist community have to, as I've already demonstrated, be irrational if they are drawing conclusions from that, and that conclusion is that there is no God, goddess, angels, spirits, and demons, and all the rest of that. My point of view, which I have been continuing to promote and will continue to promote for as long as it suits me, is that although we cannot prove that these things exist, and we cannot prove it conclusively, the strange experiences do still seem to continue to occur. And that is why I see it as my duty to carry on persuading people, to carry on aspiring to have these forms of strange experiences, and to do so using forms of mind-altering techniques, but also to apply scientific reasoning to them. No, the magical tradition is not the art and science of changing conformity with the will to those of the New Age world. Okay? The art and science of changing conformity with the will is being and doing, as is said by Aleister Crowley, but the magical tradition was not the art and science of changing conformity with the will, as can be divined through reading the fucking words within Aleister Crowley's Magic in Theory and Practice. However, for those people who do wish to try and take the attitude that their form of magic, namely this supernaturalism, is in fact the art and science of changing conformity with the will, then they are under the onus to try and treat their explorations in a scientific manner. I will very quickly reiterate, yet again, for those people who are rather slow on the uptake, that whether you understand it or not, whether you believe in it or not, whether you don't believe in it or not, something can continue to exist or not. And strange experiences can occur, but those strange experiences don't necessarily prove that which they seem to express, demonstrate, or prove. There's too many things that we don't know. We got to carry on looking and trying to help advance human